WIPO Director General, in his opening statement to the WIPO General Assembly, said that innovation is central to economic growth and creation of new and better jobs. It is true that in the ICT industry, growth has been based on intangible assets like innovation and intellectual property. IP protection provides a reward on investment and also a willingness for companies to invest in R&D. In the last decade, we've heard a lot about the term open innovation. We just heard of it. Right now, you hear about openness of the cloud computing. Business journals, MBA programs refer to knowledge management and open innovation. And industry use the term collaborative R&D. So what I'm trying to say is that open innovation is a very flexible term, which of course is based on business reality, and that innovation cannot be commoditized, and hopefully I'll demonstrate that through this presentation. So in the ICT industry, open innovation and patent are linked, and the graphic on this next slide hopefully illustrate how innovation and licensing have been enabling the wireless industry. So on the left part of the graphic is Qualcomm. I work for Qualcomm, providing CDMA technology and a specific standard for telecommunication. And we have a huge patent portfolio, which is coming from the innovation. So when we started the company, we didn't have a business model. We were driven by very smart engineers that were working on innovation. And then we developed a specific business model, which is based on IPR. So on the left part, the protection by IPR generate revenues, which then in turn comes into research and development, and we license our technology. And with this, you have manufacturers, operators, which are able to build, what is called the wireless ecosystem, but more or less what we used today. You can have a wide variety of phone and services. So our business model has been investing heavily in R&D, in strategic acquisition. We've heard from the previous speaker. We contribute our technology to standards, and our business, like we've heard before, depend on the success of our licensee. Today, if you look at the wireless ecosystem, there are more than 3 billion people in the world that are, having a cell phone. Some people in India, for instance, fishermen, they use their cell phone They have an application on their cell phone that basically tells them which port, which harbor already had a market in which the fish has been sold. So they can go to the next harbor in order to have the fish sold instead of going to the harbor and then finding out that transaction have taken place. So that is an interesting development. If you look at competition in the handset market, you see it's thriving. I mean, in Europe, I think 10 or 15 years ago, you had, I think, 2 manufacturers of cell phones. Nowadays, when you go to the store, you can choose from a variety of different manufacturers and providing different application. And talking about application, I think Google is proposing something which is also very interesting. The message here in this wireless ecosystem is that open and inclusive licensing have fostered technology adoption. I'm talking about the ICT case where you have a lot of patented technology. So now that we've seen the role of innovation and technology diffusion in the wireless industry, I like to look at a particular dimension of open innovation, which is standardization. Today, a vast majority of our products currently which are on the market are developed in compliance with one or more standards. Standards helps organization through cost reduction, compliance, product compatibility, and standards stimulate knowledge, intensive activity like innovation and diffusion of technology. In 2009, WIPO, the WIPO SCP committee looked at this issue and produced a report which is called Patent and Standard Report. And they looked at established IPR policy of developing a standards organization and how they are promoting the wide adoption of the standard and access to the underlying technology, which is coming from the companies and from the innovation. And that report doesn't provide any recommendation, but I'm putting it here because it provides a wealth of information, and it's very factual. And in accessing the intellectual property, which then helps creating a wireless ecosystem, as we have seen, there is a very important principle, which is called FRIEND, which means that licenses should be granted on fair, reasonable access and non-discriminatory basis. And what is important is to understand that FRIEND is a framework for standardization, which allows different business models. Earlier on, we've heard that open innovation is about business model. I mentioned that it's a very flexible term. There are business model wars on the market. I mean, I'm representing a company. We have competitors. I mean, not direct competitors here, but and the company has to survive and to make money and to employ people and to fire people. I mean, the economical cycle. And this framework of FRIEND regime is business model neutral, and this is something very important because you're not driving innovation or open innovation to a specific business model. Another source of confusion on the market has been that the term open has been used in a variety of contexts. So we've heard about open source. Open source, without going into the details of what it is, calls for a royalty-free patent license. The source code from the software have to be made available on a non-confidential basis, and proprietary software becomes subject to open source licensing. But if you look at it, open source is a business model, and it's a distribution model, which in fact is based on IPR. There is a license. The terms of the license might be very specific, but it's the underlying foundation is an IP right. Also, we hear about, oh yes, open innovation and open source, it is for free. Actually, when you look at who is creating, maintaining, modifying, debugging the code, you see that there is a cost. And a lot of time we hear open innovation, open source, and royalty-free, and we have to decouple this activity to see where the costs are going and to see that it's different, I would say, distribution strategy. Another source of confusion, we hear about open standards, that open standards equals open innovation. A lot of open source licenses are incompatible and on purpose with patent. That's perfectly fine from a different business model approach, but that's the result. And when you're trying to implement this on market as a company, there is a cost, and you must look at these things. So regarding open standards, I would just like to give you some characteristics, which is coming from the GSC. So you see GSC Resolution 1524. GSC stands for Global Standard Collaboration Meeting. So in the ICT industry, you have different standards for wireless. You have the GSM standard, the CDMA standards, the Chinese standards, and the Japanese standards. They're coming from regional standards organization. All this regional standards organization, they meet every year and they pass a bunch of resolution. And the one, I think, on open standards needs to be read out. So it could bring some elements of clarification. So last August in Beijing, the GSE partners resolved that an open standard is approved and maintained by a collaborative consensus-based process, that such process is transparent, that materially affected and interested parties are not excluded from such process, and that the standard is subject to fair, reasonable licenses. So I think that this provides a good data point in the ICT industry of what is meant by open standards, and then when we're trying to put it together with the terms open innovation. On the next slide, I will go very quickly on these slides, but now we have a better picture of key concept driving the ICT industry. We see that innovation is driven by investment, that innovation creates new IP, that IP enables new technology and product on the market, that economic returns have been achieved through licenses, and that in turns, the return on investment sustained R&D. If you look at IPR protection, it's equally important. It permits to earn economic returns. Also for entrant on the market, small SME, IPRs are very important. They're the currency to negotiate and to be active in there if they want to protect their assets. Lastly, standards drive growth in that sphere. And especially they bring parties together to assist in driving innovation and communication. So earlier on, I think we've heard about people sharing background IP and talking collaboratively. Standardization is about collaborating with your competitors, finding a common language, and then sharing any return if the standard is successful. And their standards were on the market, so you never know. So what I'm trying to say is that when you have a patent portfolio and that you invest a lot, you don't know exactly which patent is going to be successful or like the killer or sexy application. And there is a cost, and standardization is a way to innovate I would say, in an open environment. So now that we've seen this sort of like ecosystem, I would like to finish with some concluding remarks. Innovation is clearly not a commodity. Even for eureka innovation, something that you find out really quickly, or a killer patent that brings a lot of cash to your company, there are cost and risk. They can be enormous. And in addition to the R&D expenditure of that cost, there are product development, marketing, and standard cost. So, we must try to have this in mind. Innovation should be rewarded on the cost and risk undertaken, and IP protection is a cornerstone of that architecture. And open innovation is actually not substituting for IP. In fact, intellectual property right is the currency for innovation, and licensing promotes technological diffusion. So the next slide contains the source of information that I have used for this presentation, and with this I would like to thank you for listening.